Hey my friends, Jeff Yalden here. I've talked about teen mental health and suicide prevention since 1992. It's always an honor to be trusted to speak in school communities and to teens about mental health and suicide prevention. So for everybody that's invited me to their school community, thank you so much. You know, when I visit a school community, there's a high probability that one will come across topics related to self-harm or self-injury, especially when you're talking to teens about teen suicide prevention and teen mental health. So I want to spend a couple minutes talking to you about what I have been able to decipher about self-harm in teens. First, what is self-harm? Self-harm is a non-suicidal act of deliberately harming or injuring one's body. And some different types of self-harm. Many people think that self-harm is just limited to burning and cutting oneself. However, this is not the case. Since self-harm includes other activities such as pulling out bodily hairs, punching walls, ingesting toxic substances or sharp objects, also headbanging, self-medicating, and even reckless behavior. But also, would you include vaping as self-harm? I think absolutely. The same way that you would include alcohol, pot, or pills. Some reasons teens self-harm. I'm going to share with you the reasons teens engage in self-harm from what I hear from them. But first, I want to share other various reasons why teenagers engage in self-harm. And some of them include the following: emotional disconnect or a detachment from or not being validated by their parents. Self-harm makes them feel alive, inside and helps confirm their existence in reality. Also peer pressure. The desire for teenagers to be accepted by their peers will lead them to conform to group norms and expectations such as self-harm. Research has also shown that individuals will conform to their peers' norms or their behaviors and attitudes because they lack self-esteem. And for girls, self-harm may be used as a coping strategy with overly demanding parents, especially in situations where the father is the dominant voice when it comes to discipline and decision making. Now, self-injury can also be an attempt to cope or decrease severe emotional distress or anxiety and provide relief. It could also provide a distraction from painful emotions through physical pain. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Also, to feel a sense of control over their own body, their feelings, or situations they're going through in life. And to feel something, anything, even if it's physical pain when feeling emotionally empty. Also to express internal feelings, but in an external way. Also to communicate feelings of stress or depression to the outside world. It could also be to punish oneself. 3 common reasons that teens self-harm that I hear from teens during my one-on-one interaction with individual students. My friends, I've discovered that one of the main reasons why teens engage in self-harm is because they lack meaningful relationships. This is what they tell me. For example, some students have claimed that they don't have friends. Secondly, they feel that they disappoint themselves or their parents or friends, even teachers. Also, teens feel that they are a burden and they do not want to speak up because they don't want to burden you with their problems, knowing that you have your own problems. And so my advice to teenagers on this matter is, hey man, you got to speak up. Because if you don't speak it out, you're going to act it out. Otherwise, look, the issues, whether it be negative feelings, depression, trauma, brokenness, anxiety, the stress they're going through, the feelings of being overwhelmed, these issues will manifest and end up showing up later in life if you don't speak it out today. And so with that being said, is it that the teen is depressed and the teen wants to die? And should we just go directly to that question? Do you have a plan? Are you thinking about suicide? Well, listen. Teens don't want to die. What they want is the pain that they're feeling to end. But let's look at youth today. And it's not their fault. They live in the here and the now. Think about it. You put an ATM card in a machine and you get money. You send a text and you get a response. You post a selfie or an ussy and you get likes. Life is not in the here and the now. So there's a process to learning to cope and process or problem solve. Two big issues that are facing our youth today is coping and problem solving. But in the middle of this, I don't have friends, I'm a disappointment, I'm a burden. Do you ask the question? Let's look at how all of these intersect. And a lot of teenagers are going online and researching teen mental health and anxiety and teen depression. But in the middle of all these feelings, the teen tries to figure out how to feel better on their own. And so more and more youth, they're not only searching online for help because they want help. They want to feel better in the here and the now. And so they resort to self-harming behaviors when they need to resort to more communication and finding healthy coping skills through either professional help, talking this out with a therapist, but at least having a significant and trusted adult that they can talk to. Thoughts are thoughts. Like an arm is an arm, legs are legs. Thoughts are thoughts, but feelings are so much deeper. And you got to be able to get those feelings out. And so many of our young people cutting or burning themselves. It numbs unpleasant thoughts. It helps take the emotional pain away, leaving them in control of the physical pain that replaces that emotional pain that they struggle trying to deal with. And so for the child engaging in self-injury, this helps them cope or deal with their thoughts and their feelings in the moment. But the other benefit of self-harm to teenagers is that it gives them fast-acting relief from emotional distress and pain. Now, yes, I said benefit. This is a benefit to them. I am not saying that there are benefits to self-harm in the clinical way, but if you look at the non-clinical way, teens are seeking help. They want to feel better. So this is a benefit to them in feeling better, not the healthy way of coping. But in the relationship with teens, you don't want to be surprised. You don't want to react. You're going to push them further away. But listen, what happens is the physical pain stimulates the body to release endorphins. Endorphins block nerve cells from receiving or transmitting pain signals. Essentially, self-harm amongst teenagers is a coping strategy. Not a healthy coping strategy, but it's a coping strategy. It's a coping strategy for teens that are dealing with emotional pain. What we need to do is teach them there are healthy coping strategies. And if we can give them what's a healthy coping strategy, to give them what they're seeking for in an unhealthy coping strategy, we're communicating. We're getting them to understand where we're coming from, but we have to understand where they are coming from. And so it's really them trying to feel and getting help, but again, it's in an unhealthy way. My friends, my job when I come to school is to teach young people that they can get the same benefits in finding healthy coping skills to deal with life. But we can't help a child if we don't know the child is hurting or in need of help. That's why the relationship is so important. Also, if our young people don't learn to speak out what they're feeling inside, then they're going to act out what they're feeling inside, and it will manifest and show up at some point in life. Young people are acting out their feelings when they're engaging in self-harm or self-injury. Mental health today, it's so different than it ever has been. 10 years ago, teenagers need help. They want to be heard. They're struggling. And parents, here's what you can do if you don't mind me sharing. Our youth, our young people, your son, your daughter, they do not know the best way to seek this help since they're afraid of being judged or not being heard or not being validated. And parents are reacting, pushing them further away. Also, teens see the adults as the enemy, and therefore they don't trust adults. Why me? Because it's like reaching out to me and sharing your heart is easy because you may never see me again. Another reason teenagers fail to speak out is they do not know exactly how to articulate what they are feeling and why they are acting out in this unhealthy manner, engaging in self-harming behaviors. And so what teens are feeling, I think that's good. Well, hold on. I think it's good in that they're wanting help and they're wanting to feel better. I'm not saying it's good, but they're coping, they're wanting to feel better. But this makes me less concerned that they're considering suicide as an option. They don't want to die. They want to end the pain is what they want. But it's how they go about feeling better that is the issue. And by intervening and showing love and support with compassion is going to help the teen realize there's a better and a more healthy way to cope than self-harming. Okay. It's when the child or the teen is not feeling, which is abnormal. That is what concerns me. And this is called growing up dead. Very concerning. So yes, most teenagers are surprised that I don't show disappointment or judge them or react. But instead, by staying calm, validating their thoughts and feelings, I'm taking away their guilt and shame by showing no reaction and letting them know that I am listening to their heart with compassion and grace. What I want to do and what I encourage you to do is create a safe environment for the child, the teenager that is coming to you and they're engaging in self-harm. That is essential in them feeling comfortable sharing and opening up. And so in this conversation that I might be having or you're going to have with the teen about self-harm, I will say, and I encourage you to say this, self-harm isn't a healthy way of coping. You understand that, right? And the teenagers agree with me, and they'll agree with you. And then you can say something like this. How about if I give you in a healthy way what you're seeking in an unhealthy way? Would you be interested in what I have to say? And because they know you care and you're communicating with them, not at them, they're going to say, sure. They're more likely to listen when they know that you are listening and you're not judging or lecturing them. And so I show support. I show support where they are while I'm listening to their heart without judgment. Also, it's important to note that one cannot help a teenager who self-harms or needs help if one does not know that they need help. So I want to go over a couple things here. The good in self-harm. Hold on. Again, I'm not saying it's good, but please understand. For many of our teens, again, cutting or burning themselves numbs the unpleasant thoughts. It helps take the emotional pain away, leaving them in control of the physical pain that replaces that emotional pain. Remember, I said that earlier. But the other benefit of self-harm to teenagers, is that it gives them fast-acting relief from the emotional distress and pain. That's in the here and the now. And so the physical pain stimulates the body to release endorphins. And the endorphins block nerve cells from receiving or transmitting pain signals. To them, that's why. It's good. It helps them in the here and the now. But the bad in self-harm, one of the major reasons teens are turning towards self-harm behaviors is the endorphin effect that they receive. Endorphins are secreted into the bloodstream when teens cut or burn themselves. They experience a numbing or pleasurable sensation, which is bad because if they don't get the professional help that they need, this pleasurable feeling will continue to make them feel better and they're not going to seek help. So they'll continue self-injury, making seeking help difficult the longer that they're not learning the healthy coping skills. See why it's important to be present and not reactionary, because you engage in the conversation and we get help sooner rather than pushing you away and help comes later in life. Self-injury can also cause major complications, such as worsening feelings of shame or guilt and even low self-esteem, infection, either from the wounds or from sharing tools, permanent scars, or other permanent harm to the body. Worsening of underlying issues and conditions, if not properly treated, could also lead to severe injury that could lead to death. And the ugly in teen self-harm, Listen, self-harm is not usually a suicide attempt. However, it indicates that there's an existing problem, which means if this emotional problem is not treated promptly, then the risk of suicide also increases. Additionally, it's essential to note that the patterns of injury when a teenager is distressed may increase the risk of suicide. For an example, self-inflicted wounds may happen regularly and at times increase blood loss, increasing the risk of suicide. And on top of that, some injuries may be fatal, increasing the risk of suicide. So to reduce the risk of suicide, an individual or teenager with emotional and mental health conditions must seek professional help. And again, it's okay to not be okay, but it's also okay to not be okay and to seek help, to talk to someone. I want to address self-harm versus self-decorating. Most parents or guardians do not know that their child is engaging in self-harming behaviors because they do it in private or with their friends. And so many people confuse self-decoration with self-harm, but there's also a big difference between self-decorating and self-harm. It seems a popular fad amongst teens today to use body piercings and tattoos as a form of self-decorating. But teens who self-harm seek relief from emotional pain. They are not self-decorating. I want to give you some signs and symptoms that self-harm is a problem in your child's life. You can look at cuts or scratches or burn marks on their arms, their legs, their back, their chest, or the abdomens. Excessive rubbing of an area creates a burn. You might find knives or razor blades, box cutters, and other sharp objects hidden inside their bedroom. They might be keeping sharp objects or other items used for self-harm on their body, on their person. They may be regularly locking themselves up in the bedroom or bathroom following a bad day at school or negative encounters with their peers or family conflicts that for lengthy periods of time. And so the family physician, a teacher, or other adult is going to observe these cuts or burn marks, or that the teen appears to be regularly moving bodily hairs. The teen's peers cut or burn themselves. That could be an indication. Reports from a sibling indicating that they found blood, encrusted razors, or caught the teen in the act of self-injury. It could be scars, or often seen appearing in patterns. Excessive rubbing of an area creates a burn. Your child might be wearing long sleeves or long pants to hide self-harm, even in hot weather, or frequent reports of accidental injury. Relationship difficulties with others, impulsive, intense, and unexpected behaviors, and emotions change quickly. They could be talking of helplessness, or hopelessness, or worthlessness. And so I want to encourage you to seek help. Take all signs seriously. If this is your child or a friend that you know, and they might be self-harming, even if you think it's a minor way of self-harm, or if you have thoughts of self-harm or harming someone else, my friends, please reach out and ask for help. Any form of self-injury signifies something bigger, and these stressors that you're dealing with in life needs attention, and it's okay. And so I encourage you to find a trusted, significant adult in your life, a friend, relative, a healthcare professional, a spiritual guide, youth pastor, teacher, counselor, nurse at school. And listen, if you're concerned about your reputation over your wellness or the wellness of your child, and you don't want to involve the school, listen, you're part of the problem. I need you to be part of the solution. Our schools have incredible resources. And so they can help you in your initial steps toward a successful course of treatment. Even though you might feel guilty and embarrassed about your actions, you can get helpful and compassionate help from people who won't pass judgment, that will respect you. And so my friends, it's all right. And keep in mind the adage that you can't get aid if nobody knows that you need it. I want to leave you with the self-harm test. This is good. If you need to self-harm, I want you to try asking yourself these questions. First, And then what I want you to do is write them down so you can refer to them later and you can analyze your reasoning for self-harm with the medical profession, such as a counselor, therapist, or doctor. Here are the questions. Why do I self-harm? Why do I feel that I must self-injure myself? What has driven me to cut, burn, or other self-harming behaviors? Have I done this before? How did I cope then? Did I feel the same way, or am I feeling the same way now as I did then? What other paths have I pursued to ease my pain before now? Like, what other ways of coping did I use to ease my pain? And is there something else that I can do? Are there self-harm alternatives that won't hurt? How am I feeling in the here and the now? How will I feel later after I was self-harming? How will I feel afterwards when it's all done? Like tomorrow morning, or the next day, or next week? And can I avoid the problem that has driven me to this point where I'm thinking self-harm is a viable way of feeling? Is there a better way that I can handle it next time? Do I have to self-harm? So those are just some simple questions that you can analyze, and you can write them down, your answers. And the more specific and honest you are, the more information that you're going to give a medical professional to help you cope and to find other alternatives. So I encourage you to print this self-harm test out, and also your answers, and share them with your doctor, therapist, or counselor. Because your insights into why you self-harm and how you feel about self-harm could be incredibly helpful in communicating and getting treatment and recovery as you move forward in recovery. My friends, I'm Jeff Yalden at jeffyalden.com. I want you to know that suicide is the most preventable form of death. There is help, but nobody can help you if they don't know that you need help. So have the courage to speak up and address it now before you end up having to address it later.